If Maria supported the show, I'd be less sick of podcasts.
Blah, blah, blah. The blah, blah, blah.
Sending out good vibes.
And the blah, blah, blah.
Good vibes.
Blah, blah, blah.
Good vibes.
And the blah, blah, blah.
Good vibes. Good vibes.
108 breaths of deep gratitude and prayers for guidance and protection. And put on a didgeridoo and shamanic drumming track. Shivers or vibrations and stuff like that.
America. And that's actually what ended up killing me. As I aspirated, I ended up breathing in my own vomit. Whereas my buddy, he ended up going into one of the booths.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grand America Show. We are going to be chatting with Vinnie Tolman a little bit later. The Light After Death, My Journey to Heaven and Back. As Graham says, probably one of the craziest NDE stories you'll hear. Kind of, I don't know, it's pretty along the lines of what you expect for an NDE, I guess. Nothing, maybe a couple little surprises, but nothing totally different than what we've been hearing over the years. And we're trying to live stream again because this Friday, I guess it'll be April 7th, we're going to have Mark from After School, popular YouTube channel. I think he's got 2.7 million subs now or something like that. He's going to come and do a live stream with us, and we're going to do some live reacting to some of his videos, and it's going to be fun. So we're here, and we got everybody's favorite podcaster, Graham Dunlop.
Hey, we also got some awesome news to talk to the people about.
What's the name?
With Randall Carlson and Malcolm Bendel, so we'll get into that in a bit. But yeah, this Vinnie Tolman story, I mean, I don't know. I listened to his book, and to me, it was one of the most incredible NDEs I've ever heard. And then when in this episode, we get into talking about how 3 days seems to be an important thing. And I mean, of course, we've read lots about the 3-day resurrection from ancient wisdom, like even going back to the initiations and the secret societies. And it makes you wonder, like, is there a connection? Because Vinnie was down for 3 days, and or at least in a coma. He wasn't dead for 3 days, but he was gone for 3 days. And he says this is a common thing, something about the 72 hours in our cells or something as well. So there might even be like a physical dimension to this 3-day resurrection thing, which we didn't really realize.
Is that how long Jesus was dead for?
Yeah, that's what I mean, dude. It's all over these ancient books.
Huh.
But before Jesus, like the Egyptians talked about it. The mystery schools talk about it. In your initiation, you go, you come, I think you come back after 3 days.
What about the Jews?
I don't know. What do you mean?
Oh.
Are you just testing out this live stream already by saying that word?
Is it what?
Just trying to get us kicked off of YouTube. Or finally, this will be the final nail in the coffin in YouTube. We finally test a live stream, and that's it. The channel gets booted right away.
Say Jews. What about their religion?
I don't know.
That one, the one to check. That's probably the important one.
That's a good point.
I thought the 3 days had to do with the sun, like when we stop at the end of the solstice, not the solstice.
Yeah, so did I. Yeah, like between the 22nd and Christmas kind of thing, right?
Yeah, what is it? Yeah, that's right. Something like that. If that, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So what else you got? I mean, Bendel's coming out. What do you think? You seem to be all in.
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to give it a chance. I mean, we got to give it a chance, right? Don't we? I mean, he's not out there like scrounging for money from people. Like I'm sure he's selling something like licenses or whatever. And he's met with the Indian government. And also what we're talking about is this clean technology based on ancient wisdom and sacred geometry. He's come out with 15 lectures now on the material. It's on Randall Carlson's website. If you go to, I'll put a link in the show notes, but if you go to randallcarlson.com and you go over to the menu on the right and you pick like video, I think it says watch. What's the actual word? You go to the right, you say watch, listen, click on that. And then there's a drop down that says Malcolm Bendel lectures. So this is the one that Randall and Malcolm recorded with Joe Rogan. And Afterwards, Joe's like, I'm not going to release this yet. He wants to do some vetting on it. Now, whether he wants to vet the technology or vet Malcolm, because of course the mainstream has kind of smeared Malcolm a little bit. There's also a book about Malcolm's story out called The Shaman, written by a famous Australian author. And so, I mean, people can judge for themselves. Go watch the 15 series and say, like, should Joe let this out? I mean, if it's real or not, should it matter? I mean, if the guy, here's my opinion on it. He's fighting for a technology that's been suppressed for 66 years to get this thing out. He's kind of put together like an all-encompassing theory. So it's not just about the tech, but he's tied in a whole bunch of other stuff. The planetary, the sun and the moon, and a lot of the sacred geometry that Randall talks about, the ether, time, to come up with frequencies of the elements. I mean, it's this in depth. So, but you can go through there and pick out the parts that are directly related to the new clean technology that basically transmutes the exhaust into oxygen. But he explains how this happens, right? They condition the water with, and now I'm just going to like total layman's explanation. You got to watch it. I really don't understand it, but they condition the water with UV. Then they bring it into this other chamber. And then they separate they make it, it's like the bubbler, but it makes bubbles with a vacuum. And then those bubbles, they sort of cavitate and it creates a little plasmoid. And that's like, it's like a sphere that's collapsing into that infinity shape. And there's a 0 point in there. And then they harness, like a bubble collapses into like.
Is that the like an orange?
The torus? The what?
Is that kind of like the orange looks? Here, one sec. Let me like this thing.
That's the torus. Yeah. Well, yeah. The plasmoid ends up in that torus shape, I think. But you're right. That's kind of what that is like. There's a bubble on both ends, and that's the middle. So then it gets harvested into this thunderstorm generator, and then it basically harvests the waste energy from like a gasoline engine, for example, which is like 30% efficient. So it increases the efficiency and it cleans the exhaust completely. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, my opinion is that he's put decades into this work. I mean, it seems like a hell of a lot of work for some kind of monetary scam. Like, I really don't think he's in it for the money. He seems legitly in it to change the world for the good. Like, this is implosive technology, not explosive. It's what Stanley Meyer used on his water car. He knows all about Stanley Meyer and how he got killed. He was poisoned. He knows about what happened to Tesla's technology. There's a book out from Ken Shoulders now called EV, the Discovery, something Discovery. I should have had that title ready. And that book was apparently deleted off the mainstream, like Amazon. And I checked this. I was like, okay, I'll check to see it. Amazon, gone, deleted. Amazon UK and Amazon USA, gone.
.com.
So
what are we having them on?
This is the original book that a lot of this is based on. And this guy, Ken Shoulders, worked with Hal Puthoff at SRI. I mean, and this was sort of pre-cold fusion. And he had this technology, all this, it was about the EV, this basically, this creating this plasmoid. And it has its own electromagnetic containment field in there. And they're trying to harness that. But then that whole cold fusion fiasco happened, and this is now kind of reviving that whole thing again, sort of more comprehensively. And I think that, I think there's a car running around in the States, supposedly with it right now.
And you've been regularly talking to Malcolm. I mean, how crazy is that?
Yeah, it's been crazy.
You better not get us assassinated down the line. I would not appreciate that.
Well, I asked you if you were ready.
I appreciate my gasoline engine, but you ask kind of nonchalantly.
It's the price. It's the price for changing the world.
I ain't changing shit. You're maybe, we're just along for the ride at this point. But I mean, I wish him the best of luck.
But this is scalable too. I mean, he's got like pictures of these huge generators, like huge industrial equipment, like working with this. And I've seen the video of them running one of those little Chandras. Like there's thousands of these little generators that they're using in Africa to generate electricity, right? Where there's no connectivity out there. And they're using all these thousands of these little mini Chinese made generators. And you could retrofit every one of those or make new ones with the technology. I mean, it's not only about retrofitting, but I believe the technology could be used to actually just build new things that are actually clean exhaust and super efficient.
Is that like, I don't know, because don't they exhaust water vapor?
But it's oxygen.
Just straight oxygen?
Yeah, well, mainly oxygen, yeah.
Okay, well, that might be okay. Because I think if we start exhausting water vapor, I feel like that's worse than CO2.
I mean, this is where you're bringing alchemy into it too. Like this is alchemy, ancient wisdom, sacred geometry. Like the way he describes the molecules changing. Like I think they reach this 0 point where there's no frequency, and then based on the resonance you can put in there, you can change it back into not change it back, but change it into oxygen. I mean, of course, I'm not going to do the explanation justice, but it's something like that where it passes through this like 0 point and then transmutes.
Well, you'll put the link in the show notes to all those videos.
But really interested in what people think. Like, let us know what you think. Is it all bung? I mean, I know that the mainstream scientists they're not gonna accept this. They're gonna have a problem with this. So I mean, a lot of the scientific minded people, as soon as you mention the Vajra and sacred geometry and some of the more esoteric parts of his explanation and his journey, they're going to want to just dismiss it based on that. But maybe not. Like, try and give it a chance and see, if it seems legit. I mean, let me know what you think of him too. If you think he's legit. I just don't think somebody would go through all that effort for money.
Are we going to have him on the show soon?
Well, I think so. Yeah.
Working on it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what else you got for us this week?
Well, I got a nice email here I should read. I want to, because we got a contact at the cabin coming up.
We do.
Want to play a jingle or something?
I'm looking to see. I've lost the Grimerica Goodies jingle, it seems like, but I do have. I definitely have a spam gram here somewhere. Maybe not. You know what I need is a bigger thing. So it's on my phone. I'm kind of scrolling through it, and it only shows 2 at a time. It's really
that's not going to work.
I'd almost rather have them switch to the computer now, so they're just in a line of files that I can pick through. I could do this one.
Don't forget to rate, comment, or subscribe to the grind.
Anyway, what do you got?
So this is an email. Hey, Darren and Graham. So this is regarding our trips. Contacted the cabin. This is called CAC integration feedback. It has been almost over 2 months now since Mount Shasta, and I have to say I've never felt more physically, spiritually, and mentally aligned than I have my entire life. It was my third contact at the cabin experience, and boy, was it a charm. The only thing I miss was you, Graham, but I'm going to try and make my way out to Utah next month, so I hope to see you there. Since I got home, I exercise a minimum of 4 times a week, do Wim Hof breath work, and get into the cold water daily, whether it's the cold pool at my sister's after a workout or a cold shower in the morning. I'm going to get myself a portable ice bath device soon when I can afford it. So that's because we do all this cold work with Brandon Powell and the Wim Hof breathing.
Who's it from?
I'm going to get, there's way more here. I finally found a practice that really works for me, and it helps me keep me in a very optimal state of mind, body, and spirit. I'm forever grateful to you guys, Brandon Powell and Wim, for helping me find my practice. Since a very young age, I've been struggling with stuttering, and this helps me stay on the path of fluency daily. And even if I mess up and stutter, I'm not nearly as fazed by it as much anymore. I also have chosen a path that will let my fear of speaking to others dwindle away by taking up a server's position at a high-end restaurant. It's way out of my comfort zone, but by sticking to my practice of physically stressing my body with healthy activities such as cold water activation, breath work, and weightlifting. It helps counteract all the mental and sometimes physical stresses I obtain from worrying about stuttering. At the same time, it helps me remain more frequently fluent. It's such an amazing feeling. I'm just so thankful that you guys put on these events that have true life-changing effects, and for not just myself, but for many others that have attended. To the guest speakers of the events I've attended, Dave Matheson, Joe Roop, Brandon Powell, Owen Hunt, the Snake Brothers, Greg Carlwood, thank you for providing such incredible knowledge and information. You are all such experts in your craft as well as amazing humans that show me such kindness. It was an absolute pleasure to meet you, and I can't wait to see you again. I'm also forever thankful to you, fellow guests, cooks, and everyone involved in making these events happen. You are all the greatest souls I've ever met, and I love you all so much. I'm so happy we incarnated in this life together to find each other again at such magical places. And to everyone listening that I haven't met yet, I can't wait to meet you. To everyone hearing this, when and if you feel overwhelmed and discouraged in this life, remember that you are the truth finders, the ones who unveil, the dreamers, the creators, the uplifters, the ones who are holding this planet together, and the ones to collectively, consciously, and unconsciously keeping the vibration of this planet stable enough to withstand the evil from forever winning. Let's all continue to do our part together to take steps on the path of being the best versions of ourselves, for not just ourselves, but for everyone. From just another you, Jonathan, a.k.a. Mellow Horace.
Wow. Well, kind email.
Very nice email. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, Mellow. Actually, I think people just call him Mellow.
Mellow, that's right. So I want to try something here. I want to see, this might just work right out of the gate. Let's see what happens if I try.
Are you going to play a little vignette?
Why is it even just going to ask? Just fucking use something.
Oh.
And now another edition of the Grimerican Goodies by the people, for the people.
So that will work. I just need to, here's the problem, is it's playing on the same channel as you are. So if I fade it out, I'll also fade you out, which, isn't ideal. But yeah, we do have that event coming up in Utah. I mean, we're almost down to 2 weeks away. It's 2 weeks from Thursday. So there's still some spots left. Not a lot, but there's still a few. And, yeah, I mean, there's got to be probably 10 spots left. I'm thinking maybe 12. We could squeeze 12, but 10 for sure. We'd really like to sell at least like 5. But if you guys head over to contact@thecabin.com, it's a canyon event. It's is my favorite one, I think. I mean, they're all great. Don't get me wrong. But Utah's just kind of special. There's something about those national parks and the stars, and Randall's stuff kind of fits right into it because, Zion especially, you can really see the mega flood evidence, or at least evidence of a lot of water moving through that place. So, I mean, if you guys want to come hang out with us just in a couple weeks here, it's a 420 bash and flying to Vegas, head up the mountain. I mean, you drive just basically straight up that mountain for 3 hours, not even 2.5, and bang, we'll get to the chalet in Duck Creek. We'll hang out for 4 nights, see some stars. We'll hike at 2 national parks, Bryce Canyon, Zion Canyon. We'll see those petroglyphs. And we'll do the ice bath. We'll do all of it. We got Ksenia Moore coming from Australia, Dave Matheson, Brandon Powell, Brandon from Expanding Realities. Expanding Reality?
Reality.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're going to have a blast up there on that mountain, and we'd love for us to join us. It just happens to be on that 420 weekend this year. So, head over to contact@thecabin.com, guys. Check it out and join us. And even if you can't do that, I mean, maybe you could just head over to grimerica.ca/support and sign up for a monthly or make a one-time donation or something like that. Because, I mean, the show is not free to produce, not free to do, but it is quite fun. It is fun, but it is expensive as well. It costs us a bunch of time, costs a bunch of money. More money, like we said last episode, we just had to dump another couple of $1,000s into some proper gear we're still sort of playing with and learning how to do, but Graham's mixer crapped out again and all that stuff. Someone in the chat says that Hitler's birthday is on 420, so interesting. Well, there you have it. We are going to smoke some weed on Hitler's birthday, it would seem. But yeah, head over to contact@thecavern.com, guys, and join us. I wonder if I can do this without messing up too much of the regular show. Here, okay. There we go. That's just for the people that are watching can kind of see.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were going to play that. Yeah.
But that's this video of Bryce and Zion and all the stuff that we're doing here. This is the stuff that we filmed last year and the year before when we were there. So for the people that are watching the YouTube video or the Facebook video, if they want to do that, they can check that out. Anyway, what else you got for us? You got a quote?
No, you know what? I forgot about that.
Oppo?
But I did want to mention that I'm pretty excited. There's this book that there's been all kinds of synchronicities around the book. Coach Chris will know about this. He has a physical copy of this book, which I'm sure is very rare right now. But it's called Edidorpa, or The End of the Earth. And it's a cult classic from 1901 about the inner earth and about this journey with a mysterious being, kind of like this guy that blew the whistle on secret society. So he was forced to basically lose his identity, get kidnapped to the inner earth to learn the secrets of the universe, basically. It's an interesting sort of like sci-fi before sci-fi was a thing, kind of like fantasy in a way. And it's on YouTube. The first half is on YouTube, on our YouTube channel called adultbrain.ca. Well, I don't know if it's adultbrain.ca, but it's our Adult Brain YouTube channel. It'll be in the show notes. And the second half will be coming in a couple days. And that YouTube channel's got some full audiobooks, but also we got more audiobooks on Audible as well. But you can go to adultbrain.ca to find all those.
Edorpa, is that how you pronounce that?
Etidorp. Well, I think it's Edidorpa. Some people say fa, but it's Aphrodite spelled backwards, and I think it's Edidorpa because it's HPA. So
what's it about?
I just explained it all to you.
Well, that wasn't really much of like.
It's about a guy who gets who gets a manuscript from a visitor who was.
Now we're talking. This is what I'm talking about.
Who was basically taken out of a secret. He left the secret society and blew the whistle. They think it's based on the 1826 anti-Masonic phenomena that happened. And this guy got kidnapped and had to change his identity. But then they sent him down to the inner earth. Like few people get to experience this inner earth thing. And then he meets this mysterious being. He takes him through the inner earth to learn the mysteries of the universe. It's pretty interesting.
Didn't they just find a big ocean over there?
I know. That's what I mean. There's a whole genre of inner earth stuff and hollow earth books. I'd love to read some more, actually.
Would you?
Oh, Chris is live right now watching on Facebook.
Yeah, and he's coming to Utah too.
Oh, dude, bring the copy for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, he's coming to Utah. So we're going to go to Utah and have a time here in just a couple of weeks. What else? What else you got? I mean, you don't have a quote. You just make one up.
I can find one, I guess, if you want to say something else for a bit.
What would I say? I mean, support the show. I already did the support thing. What do you guys talk about on Union?
Yeah, well, just geopolitics a little bit and stuff like that. I was on the Union and Wanted again, and we've been on some other shows. I was on Tommy's podcast a little while ago.
Well, that's right. I was on the Hockett podcast with the Mint. If people want to check that out, the Hockett podcast. You were on Tommy's podcast. What's that called?
Tommy's podcast.
Tommy's podcast. Is that it? Were we on something else too? The other one got postponed, I think, right?
Yeah, you know what? The best thing to do is just look back through the calendar, pretty much.
Are you telling me to do that? Okay.
Well, no. Wait.
So did you go on Melk?
No.
We were on expanding realities.
That's
which
right.
I think expanded reality is what it's called. And we were on that just the other day. I think it came out today, actually.
Yeah. And we'll be on some more coming up. So
we're on
we'll
Richard
talk more
Serra.
about that. Yeah.
Strange.
Oh, we were on his. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Strange Planet, right? Yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting because he's like one of the guys we were listening to when we first started.
10 years ago when we
10
started.
years ago, he's one of the guys that, I mean, he was doing the radio then. I'd like to hear the story of why he's not doing radio anymore.
I know that. Well, he's coming on our show. He'll be on soon, and he's got the fancy mic, and he's in his basement too. Like, I'm just like, dude, I know what you mean. We're just doing this from home now. It's awesome. So I'm looking forward to hearing his journey on our show. All right, I found a quote for you.
A quote?
It's the profound quote of the week. Darren, can you guess it?
It looks like I could add them right to the jingles right into StreamYard if I wanted.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
Who spoke it or wrote it down? Profound quote of the week.
It comes with a bunch of
Oh, yeah. All right, ready?
all right, let's have it.
Desiring to excel is not a sin. It is a motivation that determines ambition's character. Our Lord never taught our Lord never taught against the urge to high achievement, but he did expose and condemn unworthy motivation.
Ayn Rand.
No, she's not. She wouldn't say our Lord. Are you kidding me? That's from a spiritual leadership, Sanders book on spiritual leadership.
Oh, that one
There you
was, that one's pretty good. I like it.
Yeah. Thanks.
So we should mention, did we mention since we started recording that we're having Mark from After School on?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
So that'll be, Friday. Looking forward to that. You know, I was going to look quick and I want to look quick and see if I can find this, this thing that I posted actually, because I think the audio might, now that it's so easy to transfer from my phone to this thing, I might want to, let's see if this works.
If you're a fucking savage and you get out there and you grind hard and you want it bad enough, you can run all these guys over, man. This next generation is just such a fucking group of pussies.
That was you.
Small group of savages out there. Run these fucking kids right over, man. Run them all over. There's never been more opportunity than there is today. If you're a fucking savage.
That's what I've been saying. The competition has never been weak.
No, but that was almost like a direct quote from you on whose show on Expanded Realities. What? I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me?
Oh, now okay. I can. I was looking at the other guy. I was looking at the other you.
Which other me?
The stream.
The
one that's streaming.
Is it like behind a few seconds? I'm not watching any of the streams. I'm here with you. I'm fully present. I am watching the comments. But anyway, Oregon is much like an alien planet. It is when you get into there, because you never hear anything about, or not Oregon, sorry.
Utah.
Utah is like an alien planet. You no one ever says anything about Utah, but it's the slot canyons and everything else are just fucking phenomenal. Anyway, that's all I got. Support the show, grimerica.ca/support. We need your support, guys, now more than ever. grimerica.ca/support. If you can, sign up for a monthly today, make a one-time donation. Sign up for the trip. I mean, that helps support the show. I know, I see it. And you can get all the audiobooks, like Graham was saying, adultbrain.ca. We got the chat server. We got the Telegram now. And I'm on Instagram. I'm trying Twitter out again. But I got a 12-hour suspension already for saying tranny.
On where?
Well, I made a personal Twitter account. I thought maybe if I just left the brand alone and made my own account, they would leave me alone, which they have. So I've made a personal Twitter account. It's Darren_Grimes_, just like my Instagram. And I made it just on my iPhone, which is the one he had banned all my other accounts on. I did go through the Brave browser. And I've been up there so here's Justin Trudeau. Only 24 people have ever been to the moon, and they've all been American. But that's about to change. But that's not really about to change because that motherfucker's not even going to the moon. He's just driving around it. Anyway. So anyway, I've been on Twitter again, and I got a 12-hour suspension for saying these trannies are going bananas.
Oh, I thought that was from your old account or something. I saw that I kind of laughed. So you can't even make a joke about that, eh?
So, I mean, it's just a joke. So, I mean, it's 12-hour suspension, though, but this makes me think that they're not going to boot me off right away. They've assessed me enough to give me a slap on the wrist. And then Facebook made me delete a meme today, too. But that's the first time they've given me the option. Usually it's just, bam, 30 days. This time they're like, all right. They didn't actually say that they were going to give me a suspension if I click no. But I have the sneaking suspicion they were going to. So they're just like, we've suspended other accounts for sharing a meme that looks a lot like this. Would you like to delete it? And I clicked yes. I mean, I kind of feel like a pussy now.
Wow, that's really interesting. Who was that?
I would have clicked no. They would have just.
That was Facebook?
Yeah. And right now I'm trying to sell a Utah ticket. So it's really just not a good time to get 30 days.
Well, I mean, at least they're giving you the option. I mean, if they would have given you that Twitter option, then, or even YouTube, like they could have said.
Especially like right now, because they don't let you post to the, they don't let you post to the brand account either if you get your personal account suspended.
Right. Or even if Kindle would have given us that option, like, look, we'll delete it. You don't have to delete us. We'll delete it. We didn't know that was now out of bounds.
Well, we probably kind of knew.
Well, the boundaries just change all the time anyways. I mean, they can do what they want.
I thought we already had Chat GTP on here, didn't we? Haven't we already been doing that on the show?
Yeah.
How come my phone doesn't... How come my phone doesn't just pick it up?
I don't know what you're talking about, really.
Well, I was gonna try typing in contact at the cabin into ChatGPT and see what it comes back with. We have got some amazing reviews, I must say. All right, I got it. So let's see, what is contact at the cabin? What if it says cult?
Good.
Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm not aware of any specific term or phrase in English that is commonly referred to as contact at the cabin.
Well, that sucks.
Possible.
So scrap that.
Yeah. We're not culturally relevant.
Yeah.
Let's just change that.
Maybe that's our goal, just to become culturally relevant in ChatGPT.
Culturally relevant. Rick Simpson is not on this episode. I don't know why that ended up in the show notes. It's because I copied him from the Chris Barrett episode. It won't be in the actual show notes. But the description, it does say Chris Barrett. So that refers to
where's that?
139, which is a great episode that people should check out.
But what platform are they seeing that on?
Well, I think it might be all of them. Any of the ones that took the notes that I pasted into StreamYard.
Oh, says, okay.
But what it gives you a link to our actual chat with that. If you click on that Rick Simpson, you'll get our chat with Rick Simpson. It's not right now, but we did have a chat with Rick Simpson, and the link to it is right there. And that's also the first part.
Oh, you went down and took all those notes on. Yeah.
Fortune cookie gag of 2014 or 2015. So you might want to go, 2015. The great fortune cookie gag of 2015 starts in episode 139, and I believe concludes around episode 142 or so. So people might want to check that out. It's a good one. Anyway, what else you got? You got bio?
Yep. So Vincent Todd Tolman, he was born in Texas, traveled around the world, living in Cambodia and Thailand. Animals, he loves them, meditating, spending time in nature. His greatest priorities are his relationship with his creator, his family, and the people he meets. He currently lives in Vegas with his wife and 2 kids. And this is from Living God's Light. And then his book is The Light After Death, My Journey to Heaven and Back. At the age of 25, Vinnie was pronounced dead and put in a body bag. Nearly an hour later, he miraculously came back to life. This is his story.
There you have it. Enjoy the chat with Vinnie Tolman.
Vinnie Tolman, welcome to Grimerica. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, it's my pleasure to be here. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, this will be a fun one. I mean, I love these stories. I love these books and people like yourself coming forward with these really, really interesting tales or real stories. I mean, and it seems to be prevalent now. Maybe people feel more comfortable to come forward nowadays with this type of thing, but we'll talk about all that. But yeah, I mean, I'm really happy to talk to you about it.
I'm excited. I'm excited to join with you today. And yeah, man, it seems like a lot of people are now feeling comfortable about talking about these experiences, whereas even 10 years ago, there wasn't a lot of people talking about it.
Yeah. And there's a few people that, not many, but that like yours seems to be an extraordinary account where, you know, it's not really arguable that you didn't die, you know, like I like to call these certain death experiences instead of near death experiences.
Yeah. I like the term. I had somebody call it an ADE, an after death experience. And I like that too.
Yeah, exactly. So do you want to, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with your story, or how do you,
Sure, man.
Things going these days? I mean, you got a book out. It seems to be doing really well. Like you got like 200 ratings on Amazon there. It seems to be doing good.
Yeah, it's going really good. The book's doing really well. It's been out for about 6 months now. And we've surpassed all of our expectations, our targets, and our goals as far as my publisher. So I'm extremely happy with it. More than anything, it's just about getting the experience out there. Yeah, my experience itself, I don't feel it's special, but I feel the energy that came through my experience is very special, and it's not for everybody for sure, but for those who really connect to it, it tends to effectively change their lives and make their lives better in certain ways. So I'm just glad to be out there, be a positive influence out there in the world where there is so many negative influences. I like that there's a positive one out there that I'm a part of, that I got to be a part of. I was blessed to be a part of.
Well, and you narrated your own audiobook. I mean, maybe that had something to do with it too, but I definitely got a good resonance from your story. I mean, it kind of caught me at the beginning, and I was entranced the whole way through. You know?
Awesome.
And I like that it wasn't a super long book. Like,
yeah,
I like that it wasn't like an 8 or a 10 hour book. Like it kind of was just like, you know, you hit it hard and it was, you got the message out.
Well, I've experienced a lot of other people's experiences over the years, and some of them to me do a really good job of getting their story across. Others, they dive so much into the science of it and what didn't happen or did happen for them scientifically, that you almost have to be like a neurologist or a clinician or some type of specialty just to even understand what's in the book. And I love that they do that. I just didn't want that to come out in mine. I wanted the story take center stage, because the experience itself is what really has a large impact out there, and a big impact for people. So for me, that was paramount. And so we worked really, really hard. I tried writing this story for over 10 years, and I didn't feel like it was ever doing it justice. And finally, I enrolled a really good writer. His name is Lynn Taylor. And together we worked this out in about a year and a half, almost 2 years. And then got it, professionally edited so that it came across in the right way. And here we are.
Nice.
To me, I love it.
Well, Darren's here now too. Darren and Vinny, nice to meet you guys.
Hi, Vinny.
Hey, Darren. Good to see you, man.
Is my audio loud enough? Can you hear me okay?
It's a little light actually, but it's not bad.
How's that? Is that a little better?
Yeah, it's a bit
better.
There
you
go.
Okay, good. Great.
Before I forget too, I want to shout out to Buzz Costin. I think he's the one that suggested, he goes, you guys got to get Vinny on the show. I don't know if you know Buzz Costin personally or if he's just a fan of your book or your work, but shout out to him who connected us.
Thank you, Buzz. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
So can you talk about your story in detail? I know that you've probably told it a million times, but I mean, it is quite, to me, it's one of the more fascinating ones I've heard.
Yeah, I'll try to give you like the synopsis version, so it doesn't, because it does take like a good hour and a half, 2 hours to tell it. But what I'll do is I'll give you like the short version, of the abridged version. But yeah, so I ended up taking a supplement, and it was a very popular supplement at the time. That was so popular it was sold out everywhere. Me and a buddy of mine, we purchased some online from Thailand. And what we didn't know is the supplement, this particular supplement is called furanone dihydro, and it was very, very popular back in 2003. It would help your muscle recovery happen twice as fast as normal. So if you wanted to work out like your chest every day, you could, instead of alternating days, you could work out legs every day or whatever. And a lot of natural bodybuilders were using this stuff. So we bought some online. Sure enough, it comes. We're excited to try it. We each take a bottle cap. This is on a Saturday morning. It was January 18th. And we each took our little bottle cap of this liquid supplement. And right off the bat, we knew something was off about it. It was different. It smelled somewhat the same, and it had kind of the same sour flavor, but it was much stronger, way stronger than anything we'd ever taken before. So we knew it was bad right off the bat. And come to find out later, we find out that anytime you buy this supplement outside the States, you're buying a 100% solution, whereas in the States, you're buying a 95% water solution with only 5% of the actual solution in there. That's the main chemical. And so it was just too much. We got too much. We decided
it was that. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was way stronger. It's the stuff in the States was a 5% solution. The rest was just water. So yeah, it was like taking 20 bottle caps of this supplement versus of the American version,
Oh, I see.
So it was way too much.
Oh.
Yeah. And it didn't help that the instructions on the bottle were all written in Thai, which is like a scripted language. So it wasn't so easy to understand. And yeah, we took our dosage each. We both felt it was bad. We decided, hey, let's go down the street. There was a Dairy Queen down the street. Let's go down there and grab something to eat. And, from our experience in the past, we had partied a bit and stuff. We knew if you get a little too much of something, maybe if you have something to eat, you'll feel better. So we thought maybe that's what was going to happen for us. We pull into this Dairy Queen, and he's already starting to nod off by the time we get there, and he's driving. So I'm like shaking him, keeping him awake while we get there. We pull in. I helped him get the car into park. And I immediately just bolted for the restaurant. I felt like I was going to start throwing up. So I wanted to make it into the bathroom. And so I went in the bathroom, locked the door because it was a single use bathroom. There I lost my balance, passed out, and then started to vomit while I was passed out laying on my back. And that's actually what ended up killing me. As I aspirated, I ended up breathing in my own vomit. Whereas my buddy, he ended up going into one of the booths. He kind of stumbled in, collapsed on one of the booths. He started vomiting right there out in the open. So the restaurant manager, he came out, called 911, got an ambulance, and they hauled him away. And for a good 45 minutes after he had already been taken away in an ambulance. Things were quiet. Nobody knew anything other than this guy just got taken away. And finally, a customer actually convinced the manager that he needed to use the bathroom and had been locked for like almost an hour. So manager goes in, knocks on the door, opens it up, sees a dead guy on the floor, which was me. And that's where it begins for me. I actually was watching this happen from above. From my perspective, I was watching it from above. And people are like, how did you not know that it was you laying on the floor? And to me, I equate it to like driving on the street, seeing someone driving your car that looks like you, but you know it's not you because you is sitting in your car, right? And that's what it was like for me, is it felt like me was up here watching everything. It was not possible that it was me down there. I had no idea it was me that I was looking at. So I was just watching everything and observing and very interested in how this was all playing out in front of me.
And your buddy got saved from the ambulance? Like he made it?
Yeah, he was totally fine. Had no, what they did do is they pumped his stomach. They gave him like a charcoal regimen where they kind of force feed charcoal into the stomach.
It absorbs everything.
And it kind of absorbs everything that they didn't get with the stomach pumping. And they kept him overnight. So they did keep him one night just to make sure he was going to be okay. But he was released the very next morning. But yeah, with me, it was just a completely different story. They did open up, see that dead body. They called 911 again for the second time that day. And they sent an ambulance. They didn't know if I was dead or not. They wanted to make sure I was, there was a message that I was already cold to the touch. When they went to touch me to see if there was a pulse, they said, oh, he's cold. And so they did come on site. They did preliminarily try to resuscitate me with some chest compressions and following their procedures, but they did pronounce me dead. They went ahead, bagged the body, put it on a gurney, strapped it real tight, and put me in the back of the ambulance and began to process paperwork for a dead body. Yeah. Now this isn't like a big city that I was in, and some people get upset. They're like, ambulances don't have body bags. Well, this particular county, every single ambulance in that county at the time, I don't know about today, especially fire ambulances, they carry one or two of these bags in there. So I was put in a body bag. I was bagged and on my way to the medical examiner locally. And while they were on their way, this rookie medic, he was brand new, first week on the job. He was the third man on the team. So there was the two primary medics sitting in the front of the ambulance, and this rookie's just sitting in the back on what they call a jumper seat. And he's like staring at this body bag, and he feels like, hey, how come I can't help this guy? Why didn't we try harder? Why am I even doing this training if we're not going to do better for everybody? He just felt like they gave up too quick. And he knows there's certain protocols. He knows that they were following them, but he had this real desire to just still try something. And to me, it was that desire that kind of spurred the next things that happened right there.
And you were still watching this, right?
Watching it all. And the weird thing for me is I could hear the thoughts of everybody. I could hear the thoughts of the restaurant manager, the thoughts of all three medics. And to me, it played out loud, almost like on a speaker. Like I could hear every thought of everybody, even the customers that were the one guy who was trying to use the bathroom and got the manager to open the door. I could hear everything he was thinking about. I could even hear what he was thinking about while his wife was talking to him.
Wow.
And he wasn't even thinking about what she was talking about, which that's kind of normal for marriage. But it's really funny. It's just funny that the perception I had, it was almost like an all-knowing or what I call an all-cognizance, where I was cognizant of everything going on around me. As far as humans, I could hear every thought of those within my vicinity or vicinity of the body.
Yeah. So
then what happened? Yeah, let's keep going.
So at this time, they're taking the body to turn it into the medical examiner, and the way that they're taking it, there just happened to be about a block and a half from a hospital when out of nowhere, this light started to form around the chest area of this rookie medic while he's sitting back there. And then all out of nowhere, I hear this very loud voice. It says, "This one's not dead." Like very, very loud. And I could tell it was not a voice of anybody around. It was not my voice. It was a voice that came from behind me. I could hear it very loudly from behind me. And I knew he heard it because the way he reacted, he kind of like stiffened up and he looked both directions around him, like where did that come from? And he didn't do anything. He thought about it for a second, but he didn't do anything. And then shortly after that, only a few seconds later, it came a second time. But before it came, that light that was forming around his chest area, it actually got brighter and actually went above his head and all the way to his waist. And it was a really bright light. It was as if the light was coming from inside of this medic, like he was glowing. And then for a second time, I heard very loudly, "This one's not dead." And on that second time, that was enough for him that he was like, "I'm going to do something." So he undid some straps that were around the neck, like around the neck of the body, the chest of the body. He undid those straps, undid the body bag, he unzipped it, and was feeling around the neck area, the jaw area for any type of pulse. There was none. The body was cold. It was actually starting to harden up in certain areas. He then went and felt under the arm, felt nothing. He undid another strap around like the waist area and then unzipped the body bag further and went and felt on the inside thigh. And there's some major arteries. So he was feeling there for any type of sign of life. And when he pressed down, he actually made contact with my femur bone, or the femur bone of the body. And when that happened, I actually felt an electrical spark to where I was sitting watching above all of this. I actually felt a spark that it like made me jump, made my presence jump. And I know he felt it too because he gave a little jolt too. But that was enough for him, even though it wasn't necessarily a pulse, it was some type of electrical shock. He felt like that was enough for him of a sign that he was going to try something. So he went ahead and began to, force oxygen into the lungs. He then brought out this machine and hooked it onto the body to do a shock to the heart, so to defib or bring the heart back. And as he was doing all this, the other two medics didn't know. They didn't hear anything. They weren't really paying attention to him. They were talking about their own thing. And as soon as the alarms went off on the defib machine to turn it on to shock the body, that's when they looked back and saw him. They started chewing him out, telling him he's breaking protocol. He's going to get fired on his first week on the job. And that's how I knew it was his first week on the job too, by the way. Like they were really going to town on this guy. And he acted like he couldn't hear him. He literally acted like he couldn't hear them. He went ahead and went through with it, did the first round of shocks. Nothing happened. He recharged and went for a second round of shocks. On the second round of shocks, he did get a single heartbeat, and then it went back to flatline. But on that single heartbeat, the other two medics did shut up, and they were like, "Whoa, what's happening here?" And then on the third round of shocks, the heart started, and continued on its own, and it was steady and faint, but it was still steady. So at that point, when the heart did start, the trajectory of the ambulance itself was about a half of a block from this hospital. So they were able to radio in and pull right into a hospital where they had trauma teams there ready to meet the body and kind of take it from there. So they did. Still at this point, though, I'm Mr. Oblivious. I'm thinking this is all some type of weird entertainment experiment. I didn't really understand what was going on still. But as they transferred the body from the EMT gurney or the medic gurney onto the hospital bed, the body went into all these weird seizures and was seizing, and it was actually vomiting up more stuff coming out of the stomach and the lungs. And as this was all happening, to be able to work on the body, they realized they had to strap it down. So they strapped the legs down, they strapped the right arm down. They went to strap the left arm, and I felt someone strapping my left arm where I was sitting up here. And that was odd to me. And always how I've been, I don't like other people controlling me. So I resisted that, and I watched as the body actually broke the first strap they put on the arm. literally just like broke it free. And then I saw the nurse actually come back with another leg strap and put that on that same arm and bind it down. That's when I knew that what I had been watching this whole time was my own death. And this was a very weird experience for me, because all of a sudden, what had been just kind of a passive experience up to this point now became real. And now the reality of it set in, and I started to have this very fearful energy of, or this almost kind of mind speak of my own voice saying, "You're such an idiot. How could you not know this is you? How could you not know what you were watching this whole time is your own death?" And I just really started to kind of spiral into this negative thought process of, what an idiot. How are you so dumb, like, that you didn't know this was you? And really, are you worth saving if you're so ignorant? And then I started to see my whole life. And this isn't like a flash of,
so that's,
I got to see all the negative things I ever did in my life, but I didn't see it. But I didn't see it from me harming, hurting, lying, or misleading someone else. I saw it from their perspective, and I felt what they felt. Even later on, when they realized certain things, it's like I was perceiving all negative influences I had ever had on anyone else, but from their perspective. And I got to this point where I felt like I had lost all hope, and sorrow started to almost like come in and squish me and almost put me out of who I was. And that's when, out of nowhere, this warmth started to come from behind me and warm me from behind. And then out of my right ear, I heard, like, now understand who you really are. And I started to see all the good I ever did in my life, and actually saw it from the perspective of anyone I'd ever helped. And then I saw so many different people that I had helped when I didn't know I helped, or I was a positive influence as an example, and different ways people had looked up to me in high school and in college. And I had played college rugby and high school rugby, and I had all these different ways I had been a positive influence on others. And there was way more. There was just so much more on the positive side. I allowed that warmth or that light to come over me because I believed that I was valuable, because I saw it. And as this all started to happen, I did realize that all of this warmth, all of this love and light that I was feeling, it was coming from behind me. So I turned my presence, like who I was, I turned myself around to get a gauge of where this was coming from. And there's this like proverbial looking God type figure, all dressed in white, long white beard, long white hair. And he's just beaming of this energy, this flow and this love, and it's all directed at me. And of course, I had the first thought as soon as I saw him, "Oh, you're God. You must be God." And he, without using his mouth, he answered me and said, "No, son, I'm not God." And my follow-up was, "Well, then are you Jesus?" I know for some people that's weird. Why would you follow up with Jesus? I'm like, well, if you're not God, well, maybe you're Jesus, And that's what I thought. And he chuckled a little bit with that, and again, without using his mouth, he said, "No, son, I'm not Jesus. My purpose is to be here to be a guide or a helper, to help you go wherever you want to go. And my friends, my family calls me Drake." And I'm like, okay, Drake, I definitely don't want to go back to that, because that back there, it looks like hell to me. And even to glance back and see the body actively in those seizures, and they were trying to get IVs in and get all sorts of stuff going on, and they were actually forcing a tube down the mouth right when I had looked back too. I think they were getting ready to try to pump the stomach. I looked at that and I said, I want nothing to do with that. I want to go wherever you're going, or wherever you came from, because I could tell that energy, that love that he had, it was coming from wherever he came from. And he explained to me, well, he said, "Vinnie, I came from your home, which is also my home, and I can take you back there. I can take you to your home." And I said, "Absolutely, that's what I want to do. Let's go." And so he said, "Okay, this is going to be different than you think, It's not going to be an easy journey, but it is going to be worth it, because it's not just a journey of from here, earth, to our home. It's a journey of understanding, and he was going to help me through the understandings. And he started to equate it to something that I understood. And I understood frequency because I knew electrical, and when I used to build homes, I really understood frequency. So he said, it's going to be like I raise your frequency as we journey. And I, as ignorant as I was, I kind of chuckled, and I said, no, you don't understand. I'm Christian. I've been baptized. I take Jesus as my Lord and Savior. And so I'm saved by Jesus. I can just go right to heaven. I can just go straight home. We don't need to do this whole like learning. I told him, I'm like, I've already been through all the learning. And he laughed at me, but not in a ridicule way. He laughed at me in like a loving way. And he explained to me that he was very proud of me for taking these steps to follow what I felt was God and my Savior. But he helped me understand that there was even further that I needed to understand or grow for me to actually go. That kind of what I was taught in my Christian faith, in my evangelical Christian faith, I was taught the tip of the iceberg, and there was a lot more under the water that I needed to know for me to get there, to get to our home where we all originated from. And so we began our journey. I was a little befuddled because I thought for sure there was like a special back door for the good Christians, and we were going to get to just go straight in, because that's kind of what I was raised to believe, that there was the straight and narrow path of the good Christian. Even though I wasn't perfect, I was fairly good. I thought, man, I'm going to get right in. But no, I still had a lot of learning to do, and so we began our journey. And I thought, oh, okay, so I'll bet the first thing I got to do is learn about love. I'm sure that's the big deal for home or heaven. And he again laughed. He's like, nope, but actually it's not love, not yet. He said, first we have to teach you authenticity. And I thought that was really weird. But
that was a shock to me to read that part.
Yeah, he helped me understand that we can't understand love. We can't allow ourselves to feel love, and we can't allow ourselves to love unless we are authentic. So he helped me understand that I had almost like a different mask that I would put on. Yep. If I was with mom and dad, I'd put on a different mask friends, with my brother, with my friends, different mask when I'm at work. Or back in the day, I'd worked in TV and film. I'd also worked in clubs, and then in construction too. So I had all these different masks I would wear, but he helped me realize that underneath all those masks, there was one being, and that I needed to be that person, that human, that personality. And then from there, I could actually start my journey of growth. So I had to peel away and put down all these masks that I had allowed myself to create and be my authentic self. And once I could be my authentic self, then I could actually begin the progress of the journey. But yes, that was the first step and the big step. And then there was like 9 more major steps I had to go through to get all the way up to home.
And in the meantime, you're still in the hospital and sort of technically maybe not dead at this point, but in a coma, I guess, right?
Yeah, I would be considered like virtually brain dead. I was almost zero brain activity. I was down to less than 10% total brain activity. And at times, sometimes under 5%. So they felt that I was going to be in a vegetative state. They had actually given my brother and my dad were the only ones who had come and kind of checked on me, and they didn't really want to let the rest of the family know what was going on until they knew I was either going to survive or die. That was a big question for the first 3 days. So I was in a coma for 3 days, and during those 3 days, that's when I was making my journey, making my way up to home.
It almost feels like heaven and hell, like your first experience, like from a non-religious point of view, even like if you were to hear people talk about heaven and hell, like what you went through, like going through everybody else's emotions on how you've treated people, and then feeling the positive side, like that almost feels like a heaven and hell experience.
And it did. And I think that for people that have a near-death experience and they almost stay in the hell side of things, because there is that proverbial hell or that virtual hell that I was feeling when I first started. I think that they get kind of stuck there, and for whatever reason, they had to just only have that aspect of the experience. But yeah, there's so much love on that other side, and that love is what kind of pulled me through and helped me understand that I was worth saving, I was worth keeping around and living.
When I was listening to your story, I was thinking back to, it almost felt like this is why the ancients sort of came up with religion, or came up with like why to be a good person. Like, imagine if a couple people, thousands of years ago have these experiences, they'd come back and explain to everybody, like, this is what happens. Like, we have to be good to each other kind of thing,
Yeah.
It was probably happening all the time back then too, because people are having like fever dreams all the time. And
yeah, I have Native American history in my blood, and I know a lot of the Hopi Indians actually had a lot of culture about their experiences when they would do their spirit journey, and sometimes that was almost like a near-death experience. And the Cherokees as well had a lot of culture built around that the spirit walk or the spirit journey. Yeah.
So it's so weird too, now that I think about it, that if the rookie wasn't on shift that day, like,
oh yeah,
it just shows you how, because he was open, and because the way we get entrenched in these jobs and in these like ideologies, like, because he was open, this was enabled to happen in a way.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm a firm believer that there's no happenstance, there's no accidents, it's only synchronicities. There's once you understand and you're able to step away from the life path and really take a look at how your life has played out, the different teachers and mentors that just show up right at the right time in your life, that there's a complete synchronicity to that every single one of us are threads on the blanket of life, and we weave in and out of each other's life in synchronicity, in organized orchestrated ways, where there's divine intelligence behind it all. Absolutely. And most, I would say 99% of us who have been on the other side and had these experiences all come back with just a knowing, a deep soul knowing that there is a God.
Yeah.
And most of us believe that it doesn't matter the name that you associate there, that God's not this ego driven being that says you have to call me by Allah, or you have to call me Vishnu, or Krishna. You have to call me God, or you have to call me Yahweh. God's not like that. The God I experience there is so full of love that that God, that creator I experience through my experience, is one that wants us to reach out and call to him in any way we can. Whatever name works best for us.
Was he white?
So
You don't
so
have
my
to
guide
answer
my guide was, but here's what's funny is the creator is all colors, because the creator is the originator, the hand that wrote it all. The creator is both divine masculine and divine feminine. The creator is everything, but the creator is so much bigger than what our brains can think of as a god. To even say like the creator is this man sitting up on a throne with an ego driven fist pounding on a table saying, I'm going to punish the bad and I'm going to bless the good. That's not the way it works, because that would remove our agency. And that's what's allowed us to be here. And that was actually step 2 for me, is I had to learn that life is a classroom and not a courtroom, that we were sent here to earth school. And in heaven, they actually refer to earth as earth school, that we come down to earth school, where we pass through this veil where we forget who we were and before we got here. And there's a reason for that, because if we could even remember a little bit of how much God loves us, there's so much strength in that love. It would remove our ability to have free agency and have the ability to make choices, because that love is so strong, it would make us want to always make the right choice all the time. And some people would want to argue, well, that's a good thing, right? No, that would be like going into the gym every day, and whether you went there for 5 minutes or 8 hours, you get the same result every time. And that's not why we're here. We're here to learn to build those spiritual muscles of free agency, to make choices. And a lot of our good choices help us, and sometimes even our bad choices help us, as long as we're learning from them. But that's what it's all about, so that we can make choices uninfluenced by that tremendous love that exists in heaven for us. But yeah, that's also one of the cool things. Like, we can have some faith that it's there, and then when we get back there, that faith can help us make some good decisions along the way.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Darren, did you?
I
have
was
anything?
mostly joking. What trolling, I guess, would be the correct term. But so, did you ever track down the rookie?
So I did. I tracked him down about a week after. Number one, I had heard from one of the medics, not the medics, one of the ICU nurses that pretty much triages people. They had told me that he had heard that he got in a lot of trouble. So I wanted to just go and make a statement, or say, hey, this guy saved my life. What can I do to help save his career? Because he had just started it. And so I sought him out personally, and we actually had lunch at a Gandolfo's there over in that town. And we sat down. He wouldn't even let me buy his sandwich. He was like, nope, I got my own sandwich. You get yours. We're good. And I'm like, hey, can I help you with anything? Like, you really saved my life. I'm alive now because of you. I'm like, can I make your car payment for a while? Can I make your house payment for a while? I'm like, what can I do for you? I was thinking from the guy logic center, I'm a guy, I had a job, and I'm like, maybe I could buy him things to make him feel better about what he did, or maybe the career struggle he was going to have because of it. And he's like, nope, I made my own decisions. He wouldn't talk to me much about that decision that he had made. He kept calling it gut instinct.
Wow.
I'm like, dude, I saw you. You were lit, like literally lit.
You told him
and
that.
and I could see the light forming around you. And he's like, I don't know about that, but I just had this gut instinct that I had to try.
Did you tell him about the voice? Did he say he heard the voice, or?
I told him about the voice. He said he didn't hear the voice, but I'm like, you did though. I saw you respond.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not going to argue with you, but I just had this instinct. He kept calling it instinct.
Wow.
And I think what it is, that's how spirit talks to us, is the message is delivered, and then we receive it however we know how.
Intuition or instinct.
And for him, he felt it was like intuition. Yeah.
Wow. So let's continue on that sort of synchronicity vein, because there was a couple other things that happened to really confirm this experience.
Yeah. So, fast forward, I got to actually go to heaven. I actually saw heaven. I got to touch down in heaven, experience like the I call it the tourist visa version, where I got to go to and experience a little bit of heaven. And right while I was there, I was actually yanked back. I was pulled back. And I essentially got to the end of my third day of a coma, and I was forced back, and I woke up at 1:11 in the morning on the 21st of January, and I went in there on the 18th. So
in 2003, in
2003, right? Yeah.
Okay.
So I joke around. I have a death day party, and then I have a wake up party. So the 18th and the 21st are special days for me.
Nice. So that hurt. That was painful too, coming back, right?
That was way more painful than dying. In fact, dying is really awesome and easy, like super easy. It's just a matter of, if anybody's ever surfed, you surf a lot better when you embrace the wave than try to fight it. And that's what I equate dying to, is once I embraced it, that's when I got to have the really good feelings, the good experiences, all the love just pouring over me and cleansing me. And that's what dying is. We can try to resist it when it's our time to go, but that resistance is futile, like it's not going to do us any good. Finally, when we embrace it, it's super easy, and it's amazing, and it's very blessed. There's so much effort on that side of things to help us. And every single person that dies, no matter good person, bad person, doesn't matter. They have helpers there to help escort them, in whatever manner that they're ready to be escorted over. Yeah.
So you mentioned when you touched down in heaven, did you say something about a Taurus, or what did you call it?
So I actually got to see like the actual place of heaven. I got to touch the grass and see there was a school there, and the school is they called it like the university. I got to have that whole experience of seeing what that is and what kind of place it is for us, that if we want to go, we can learn there. But heaven is very, very large. It's so much larger than we could ever understand. You could fit multiple suns across the inside of this, and our sun is way larger than our planet, so that it gives you some type of scale. But the space itself is so just huge. There's plenty of space for all of us there.
Non-denominational university?
Yes. Yeah, it didn't matter. It was weird. Didn't matter what faith you had, didn't matter what culture you were in. You had access to this university. The funny thing is, though, you don't get his story or her story. You get actual history, like the real story. Unconvoluted, unfiltered, like the real story of what has happened in Earth School, but also what has happened in other schools, because there is actually a lot of other schools, not just Earth School.
Wow, that's fascinating. So then tell us about because I don't want to miss this part, because it's we talk about synchronicities all the time on the show. Going way back for like 8-9 years, we've been talking about synchronicities, and I mean, a couple of big ones I guess you could call them synchronicities, but they're really confirmations for you after the fact that this really happened.
Yeah, it was extremely hard for me to come back, and at first I thought I was crazy, because I'm a very scientifically minded person. I just am. I've always been that way. I'm very into I am now into physics and quantum physics and numbers and synchronicities of sorts that you find in the quantum field or the fabric field. And now, me being that person who I am, when I came back, I was trying to understand this experience, and I had this neurologist who told me, because I met with all of these different departments, for them to release me out of the hospital, I had to get their signature, my signature. I had to meet with 7 different specialists and get their signatures. It took me almost 6 full hours to leave that hospital and check myself out. And I wouldn't allow them to give me any medicine. I wouldn't allow them to give me any injections, nothing. Once I woke up, I'm like, no, you don't touch me. I'm not going to put anything in my body. I'm fine. I felt like I wanted to go running. So I'm dealing with all this. And then I have this neurologist tell me, well, hey, watch out for anything you perceive as an experience, because what is going to happen is the brain is going to make up an experience because there's missing time. And because there's 3 days of missing time, that's a big open window for your brain to make up an experience. And the weird thing is, I actually didn't remember when he told me this. I didn't remember my experience until the next day. It just dumped into me, the whole experience. So I'm sitting there thinking, oh, here's what the neurologist was warning me about. I have this experience. It's just my brain. It's delusion. It's oxygen deprived. It's making up, using my imagination. And I thought, well, man, that's a very creative imagination to give me such a tangible, real feeling experience. But here's the weird part. This guy, Drake, who is my guide, he's like around me all of the time, and I can perceive him and no one else can. And I can talk to him, no one else can. And I just still talk to him the way I talked to him there. As I was talking to him using my mind. And I'm like, how is it that this is happening, but yet this is my quote unquote imagination? And so I sought out professional help. I actually went to a doctor. He ended up referring me to another doctor. And this other doctor, he sat me down and he said, yeah, Vinny, you're delusional. This is what they call schizophrenia or being a schizophrenic. And it's your mind making up things that don't exist. And I'm sitting here talking to Drake, and I'm like, is this guy crazy? And Drake's like, yeah, don't listen to this guy.
That one of the?
In meantime, this older woman like enters the room, and she's definitely spirit. She's 100% spirit. I know she's spirit, but she tells me, she kind of leans over and whispers to me, and she's like, she tells me this experience, this memory for this doctor. And she said, don't take his prescription from him, because he was writing out, like handwriting a prescription for me. And not just one, he was handwriting like 3. And while he's writing these down, signing them, he was on this 3rd page, writing it down, signing it. And as he tore it off, he grabbed the other 2 and he was handing me the 3 prescriptions. When Drake told me, he's like, don't you dare pick up those prescriptions until you know that you've at least shared what she shared with you. So I'm like, Doc, this is going to sound crazy, but I got an older woman here. I'm not going to describe her, but she says she's attached to you. And she says, I have to tell you about this thing that happened to you when you were a young boy. And so I just shared the experience with him. Well, while I'm sitting there sharing it, it only took like maybe less than 2 minutes to share the whole experience. He dropped the prescriptions on his desk. He just stared at me, open mouth. And then he like clenched his hand and then pointed his finger and said, get the F out of my office right now. And this is like a good Christian guy himself. I mean, he had pictures of...
He's a psychologist, right? Or psychiatrist, right?
But he was not just that, he was also leaning towards the religious psychology side. So I mean, as far as psychology goes, he was like on the fringe, you know?
Wow.
And because he actually functioned professionally and personally in the religious sector as well as the clinical sector. And here he was, it freaked him out. So he said, like, get out of my office. And I left his office. I didn't take the prescription, obviously. I walked out. I was about a few miles down the road when my cell phone rang, and I picked it up. And I didn't recognize the phone number, and it was this doctor. And he apologized. He's like, Vinny, I've never lost it like that on anybody. He said, that's why I got into psychology, so I could control emotions. He apologized for losing it like that. He said, Vinny, you brought up things that I had blocked in my own memory, that I had to completely forgotten had happened to me. And I don't know why, but you knew it. And he said, there's no possible way for you to know something that is true, that he's been blocking his whole life. And then when it landed back in his lap, it just like blew up his world. And he said, whatever that is you have, that was real. So that was my first confirmation. I don't call it a synchronicity. I call it a confirmation. That's what it was for me. Yeah. Later, I did get some really neat synchronicities. Later, I actually got to, 7 months later, I was in this little town in Wyoming. I was watching this.
Can you grab your mic off your collar for a second?
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah. So I was up in Wyoming, at this little town in Wyoming, and I'm sitting in this little town watching a presentation on the history of this town. And up comes this picture of Drake. And I had described Drake so well that my fiance at the time, she felt she knew who he was. So she was the one who pointed it out. She's like, is that your guy? That's your guy. And I wasn't paying attention. I like looked up and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is him. And I really couldn't speak. I was frozen. Just in the change of who my energy was, she knew instantly. She was like, that's him. And I was frozen. It felt like somebody poured ice cold water down my back. Because now it was impossible for me to believe that it was a delusion. Now, between the experience with the doctor and this, I knew it wasn't a delusion. But here was the little window that maybe it's still a delusion. It said that his name was Charles. And I recognized the last name as my grandmother's maiden name. So I went directly to Grandma and I said, Grandma, who's this Charles Kazare? And she goes, oh, you mean great grandpa Drake? He's famous. He's famous in our family. And I was like, oh my gosh. So there was my little escape hatch that closed up, and I had to believe it. I had to believe that what happened was real at that point. There was no doubting it. And then later, of course, I've had 20 years of experience now with Drake, and he's been a constant part of my life all the time. So he still works with me daily. Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. So, because I was going to ask you, I mean, I got all these questions. I was going to ask you about the psychologist, but we can come back to that. But a lot of people that have these NDEs, they come back with sort of superpowers, or they can heal, they have clairvoyance, or so. Is there anything else, or is your sort of thing maybe Drake? I mean,
So mine, I do have I have like the healer's gift. I actually use it in coaching. So I actually coach people. That's what I do. I help people kind of change their life, get better connected to their own spiritual self, their own higher self, their own spiritual journey. I help them, no matter what religion they are or non-religion. I essentially try to help them be a better version of themselves. And I bring spirit in to help me, essentially. So that's what I do. And it's so weird when I work with clients and I can perceive what's actually going on, no matter what's being said. So when someone says, I just always have these headaches and blah, 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 I'm like, oh, okay, well, what about this thing that you're always drinking every afternoon around 4 p.m.? Oh, well, yeah, I do this. I drink a soda I'm like, well, let's cut out the soda. I think that's going to take care of the headaches. And simple little things like that, it can really change people's lives, just understanding. And I don't take any ability to actually do any healing, but what happens is I just understand what's really going on. And a lot of times that is able to help them. Now, it's not foolproof. I can't do it remotely necessarily. I can do it via Zoom here and there, but yeah, that's what I do. I actually coach people and help them on their own spiritual journey.
When did you start doing that?
So I started doing that a couple years ago, and I started doing it only here and there in special retreats. And then I've opened it up to doing it weekly now. So I've been doing it for about a year, doing it weekly. Yeah.
So it's so disappointing that the psychologist and the psychiatrist, like, I would have thought that they'd at least have heard of this, like the NDEs, they'd have some kind of like guidance or boundaries around, like, maybe, okay, like, this is what's happening. We can talk about it. And I'm just like, man, it's just so disappointing that our institutions can't even like assist somebody who's been through this.
Especially then, back in 2003.
Maybe it's changed quite a bit.
It has. In fact, I'm part of a group called IANS, which is the International Association in Near-Death Studies. So I'm part of this group, and within this group, there's quite a few members that are part of the psychiatry and psychology fields that are what I call NDE friendly. So they're not going to come in and try to scrutinize the experience. They're going to help you build a regimen around it or through it, so that you can deal with it in a healthy way. Yeah. Without just trying to put you on some type of anti-schizophrenia.
So there is quite a change in the last 10 or 15 years. Like at the beginning, we were talking about how many people. I mean, I've even seen now these YouTube channels that all they do is like people's experiences with NDEs. It seems like it's opening up quite a bit.
I think it really started with Dr. Raymond Moody, and I know he started his journey with talking about his experience a long time ago, back in I'd say the late 70s, early 80s is when he came out with his experience. And he's kind of fundamentally changed it for everybody. It's just taken a long time for what he started for it to actually catch on and for people to understand it. A few years later, I actually was working in Wyoming, and or actually about a year later, and I met a guy who was awakened in the middle of his autopsy. So he died of cardiac arrest. He was put in a refrigerator, and 3 days later, when they went to go perform his autopsy, his heart started to back up. So there's some really strange experiences, way more extreme than mine, for sure. I think that mine's kind of more on the timid side. But even in the last 30 days, there's been 2 people that woke up at the morgue at the actual.
You wonder how many motherfuckers get buried alive.
What?
Yeah.
Oof.
And the 3 days is interesting because that's the resurrection. And there's a whole bunch of 3 days in ancient wisdom writings and stuff. They keep talking about 3 days. Like,
well, it's weird. If you look at the process of the body, the cellular structure of the body, it's almost like the cell renews itself every 72 hours. And it's almost like that's a rule with the physical. So we're showing up at 72 hours a lot on a lot of these NDEs, but I think it's so that the body can heal itself, and then it's good to go.
And yours was 3 days, right?
Mine was 3 days.
Oh my God. Yeah. That's That's so fascinating. I wonder that, I mean, there's got to be a connection there between them talking about it all the time.
Yeah, and I bet
Thousands
there
of
is.
years ago.
There's definitely like an energetic connection to it for sure. Anybody who's into the health benefits of fasting, they do tout that the 72-hour fast is the strongest one because you're able to get the most cleansing in just 72 hours than you can ever get in 24 hours or 48 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Darren, do you have any questions at all?
Are you scared to die again now? Or
Not at all. I'm so
That make you-
excited. I'm so excited for when I get to go back.
no.
I really am.
But see, this is the problem. Like,
Does it ever make your day to day depressing? Or
Yes. And now I have a very good life. I have a beautiful wife and two amazing kids. I have a daughter, she's 13, and a son who's 2. So I have this very, very extensive, beautiful life here. And even with so much here, it is still hard. It really is still hard. Yeah. I love there. Like I love here, but man, like it does kind of stink to have been able to peek behind the curtain and then force back for however many more years. I am excited though for one day when it does happen.
is there any fear that you can't make it back there, or that like some people don't get there?
No, the only fear I'd have is that somehow they figure out a technology to prevent us from ever dying.
Yeah.
That would be my fear. Like, and that somehow that would be a punishment they give to me. Like, no, I don't want that. I want to go whenever is my right time, you know?
But that's one of the reasons why your message is so important, is because in culture right now, there's a huge fear of this, right? There's a huge fear of death. There's a non-acceptance of the other side, of our soul, of our spirit, of all this.
And here's the weird thing, and I actually show this example in the book too, that I was shown like a ribbon essentially attached to the earth and extending way out to the furthest extent of the universe, of the known universe and the unknown universe. And on this ribbon, you drop a single grain of sand, and that single grain of sand is our life here. And the ribbon is our real life. So, I mean, here is nothing compared to our real existence. And once you're on that side, you realize, oh, I was sweating all this stuff as if it was like such a big deal. It's kind of like an ant waking up and realizing you're a human. Why was I freaking out because that crumb got moved to the left? Like, you know, we don't need to freak out about the little hurdles here. It's more about how we react, more so than the hurdle. And how we treat each other through the obstacles and the turmoil and the trials. That's what it's about. It's about how we are able to love each other, how we're able to care for each other, how we're able to build relationships, because it's those relationships we get to carry with us, both good and bad. We get to carry those relationships with us, and the bad relationships we carry with us as something we have to heal. The good relationships we carry with us like wealth. They show up in that side like wealth. Like if you're a very bountiful person, you have all these positive attachments, all these positive connections with other people and other beings, even animals. So yeah, it's definitely a different way of looking at things. It's opposite of the world, because the world would say, you know, what makes you valuable is your car, or your job, or you know, your net worth. But that has nothing to do with your actual value of real life. Your real life value is, you know, how well you've treated your spouse, your partner, your kids, how well you treat your boss, how well you treat those you work with and interact with daily. And no matter how they treat you, how do you treat them? That's what's important.
What about even loving everybody? Even because, like, you know, it's such an interesting time right now where I can get caught up in resenting, like, not people in my direct life, but the powers that be, or the elite, or whoever wants to control what I'm doing. Like, I mean, I find that every now and then I'm like, I gotta accept and love everybody. Like
you do, and that's part
hard
of
to stay in that. Yeah. But I wanted to ask you about that.
So loving everybody is part of the creed that we have to understand for us to get on the other side, like to actually get to heaven. We realize that all of us are fingers on God's hand. And for one finger to hate another finger, or for one finger to hurt another finger, is only to hurt ourselves. And I was taught 2 really, really important principles. One is called the principle of the pointed finger. So when I point a finger and I say, hey, that person is a bad person, I'm sending one amount of energy towards them. And with my thumb, I'm sending one amount of energy of blame towards God, the creator, and then flip that hand over. And I have three fingers pointing back at myself. So anything I'm trying to project onto anyone else, I'm actually inwardly taking that energy 3 times stronger on myself than I could ever project on anyone else. So the principle of the pointing finger, it's important for us to say good things, say positive things about others. And as we do so, we're actually amplifying our own positive energy, our own positive self-worth or self-belief. And that's one of the most important things I learned out there, the principle of the pointing finger. But the other principle that's super important is called the principle of the hour of power. And that's the first 30 minutes as soon as we wake up and the last 30 minutes before we go to bed. We're framing who we are and what our day is with what we allow in that 30 minutes. So if we allow Twitter, news, sports, that essentially is our real religion. What we're putting in our hour of power, that is what we're framing our life with. So if we were the picture, the frame around the picture, the paradigm builder is what we put in our hour of power. So how empowering would it be for us to put positive things? Like if we feel that we're a victim, take your hour of power and put a gratitude list.
Yeah.
And thank God for a heart that pumps blood every day, for eyes that work, for a neck that turns and functions, and arms and legs and fingers. I mean, the simple basics that all of us wake up as average humans, we get that. And then anything on top of that. And if you go through that list every day in the 30 minutes before bed and 30 minutes when you wake up, you will begin seeing fundamental changes happening in your environment. And someone who says that they live a cursed life, I challenge them to do this. And you will watch that cursed life turn into a courageous life, and then into a victor's life, and into a great story of success. Because we get to choose. Our magic wands are our thoughts. And what we allow our thoughts to be is what we will eventually create around us. And it does start with our thoughts. So it's important for us to understand and master that power.
Oh yeah, that's super powerful. And it doesn't mean you're avoiding negative stuff, or it doesn't mean you're sort of running away or avoiding stuff.
Yeah, it's just like if you have a pig, you don't allow your pig to live in your house, in your living room, in your bed. But yet for some of us, that pig is Twitter. Some of us, that pig is Fox News or CNN or MSNBC. Some of us, that pig is, our favorite NFL team, whatever. You just need to take a stand and put it where it should be. And that's within a pig pen, right? And don't allow that in your sacred space. So control your sacred space, control your hour of power, and now you're controlling your life. Now you're putting a better control on your environment, which eventually controls the environment.
I love that. That's super practical advice. I mean, the gratitude thing is very, very powerful.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Yeah. So what about the limbo? Like you did mention, people will go there, but there is a, the Monroe Institute, and you kind of mentioned people getting stuck in that kind of hellscape. Mm-hmm. So is there a limbo that people can get stuck and not make it through?
They can, but it's all free agency through the whole process. So for a spirit to be stuck here, which I've worked with a lot of spirits that are stuck here. In fact, I sat down at a restaurant once, and there was this police officer that had passed, and he was sitting in his favorite booth at this restaurant, and he didn't understand why no one would serve him. He didn't understand, he'd been there for years.
Wow.
And he had passed in the late 90s, and I could perceive him. And just to test things, to make sure I wasn't the only crazy one in the room, I put it out there for my wife, for my kids, and for my godmother. I said, hey, if you guys can perceive a spirit in that corner, what are you guys picking up? My daughter said, oh, I see a police hat. And then my wife was like, yeah, he's wearing a uniform. So they were able to glean before I said anything, before I pre-programmed the conversation. They actually were able to pick up on little tidbits. And together we just sent loving energy to this guy. We helped him understand that he was crossed, and helped him understand that I've been there and it's amazing. And it just so happens my buddy Drake is right here. He'd love to help you, go if you'd like to go. And we were able to actually help this guy. And the coolest thing as as he was crossing, as he was transitioning, like the whole restaurant lights, they flickered off and then on.
Wow,
And it
that's
was really,
crazy.
now someone will say, oh, it was just, the city was changing a breaker or whatever. But you know what? The exact timing of him like making his transition, embracing where he actually was. It was a very beautiful experience that we were able to have as a group. So I didn't feel like I was the only crazy one. We got to feel crazy together, all of us.
Oh
And
yeah, that's great.
it was, there's a lot of spirits that are here just like that. But here's the thing. You have to be really careful in trying to work with them, because a lot of them are stuck in a fear cycle, or a cycle of lack. If someone doesn't honor their hour of power here, it's almost like they die and they want to keep checking in on the negative energies. They want to hear a negative announcement. And it's almost like they want to wait for the negative announcement before they move on. Well, guess what? There's never an announcement that's a negative enough for them to feel like they can move on. So they just stay here in this cycle of trying to figure out what's gonna happen with the world. And we don't have to do that. We can master that stuff here, so that we don't have to wait till we have all this extra help from the other side. Now, all these spirits that are here, they are everywhere. There's a lot of those spirits all over the place. There's a lot of helpers, there's a lot of angels that want to help them, but they turn away from that help. They choose not to embrace it. So it's always up to us whether we stay or whether we go. Even after we die, if we don't want to go, we can just stay and hang out on earth as long as we want. But what's really neat though is you can cross all the way over and be in heaven at any moment. Someone even thinks of you, you can be there with them instantaneously, and you can talk to them and experience whatever you can with them. So you're never locked out of earth, and you're never locked out of heaven. It's us. We choose whether we go or we come or we stay or we listen.
What about suicide?
So even with suicide, there's certain suicides that it was their time to go, and suicide was the path.
Okay.
It's not every time. There's actually one instance where I was working with a family that their son did shoot himself, and with that particular case, he said he knew it was a big mistake and he was afraid of heaven. So we kind of did some meditations. We did a lot of prayer, so much prayer, and prayer is extremely powerful. When we pray for our loved ones when they've crossed over or in the process of crossing over, it gives them a lot of help. So we continued to pray, continued to work with him until he would cross. And it did take a long time for him because he had so much guilt about making that mistake. And it's one of those mistakes, once you make it, you can't take it back,
But for some people that are in total pain, they can hardly live, like maybe it's their time, that kind of thing.
Well, especially where there are specific prescriptions they were put on. It's almost like it created the perfect storm. And really the only option for them was to commit suicide.
Oh, okay.
And in that case, there were so many outside forces creating that perfect storm that it pretty much gave them a course of no return. It took them down the rabbit hole where they couldn't get out. They knew it was just over, so.
Oh, I like that. It seems very logical.
It is very different for everybody. I did know that I wanted to end my own life after I came back, until I met my fiance, who is my wife now. As soon as I met her, which I met her just a couple months after I came back. So I did have a really, really tough couple of months until I met her. And I'll tell you, I knew I wasn't going to commit suicide though, because I knew when I got back to heaven, I was going to go the right way, because I didn't want to mess it up. I didn't want to be, prevented from going as far as I wanted to go. Because the weird thing is, in heaven, there's no guard sitting there preventing you from going anywhere. The guard is our own heart, and we can go as far as we think we can go, and we can't go any further. And then the grace of God, the grace of our Creator, comes in and allows us to go a little further than what we could have gone on our own, but only a little further. We can't go all the way where we want to go unless we feel we're worth that, what we deserve. Yeah.
Is there a light to follow as well? Like, I know your book's called The Light After Death, and there's kind of a conspiracy now that you shouldn't follow the light, or the light is not the way to go. I don't know if you've heard that.
I have.
Kind of saying,
I've heard that.
Don't follow the light, follow the light.
The funny thing is the funny thing that I see in that is people have this perception that somehow you can make the decision here. that can quote unquote not follow the light. That's like walking into a situation where you've got some resources to help someone, and someone is put right in front of you who really needs those resources. You're gonna, most good people are gonna reach in, grab those resources, whatever they are, to help that person, especially if they really perceive the need. And when you get crossed over, when you die, and you perceive this unequivocal, unconditional love that's just pouring on you from one direction, you're going to turn around from all this fear and all this bickering and idol worship and money worship from earth, and you're going to follow that light. And so that's why I call it the light after death. I had to die to learn how to live. I had to die to realize that what matters is the people and the relationships in this world. That's what matters. How we treat each other. It doesn't matter our political party. Doesn't matter who our favorite band is. It doesn't matter what kind of music we like or don't like. What matters is how we treat each other. That's so important. And what we do with that is going to make a huge impact on us. There's this thesis that if you follow the light, that you're going to get trapped in a cycle of reincarnation, and you're going to keep reincarnating here. Well, the funny thing is, people don't realize that this life, before we got here, it showed up to us like a worksheet, and we checked all the boxes that we got. And that's going to be really upsetting for some people. They're going to be like, I didn't choose to get this and choose to get this and choose to get this. And I tell them this, correct. When you're in the mentality of experiencing it right now, yeah, you're not choosing that. But before it began, you were given the option. Do you want an easy life where you don't learn anything and you progress very little? Or would you like a harder life? You're going to progress a lot faster. It's like someone signing up for college and signing up for all extremely hard courses, but you're going to progress a lot faster and get through college a lot quicker if you do it that way. And some of us did. I myself signed up for a really rough one. I had an extremely rough adolescence and childhood with abuse. And I look back now and I understand I did sign up for it, and I signed up for it so that I could be so ultimately aware of my environment that I could tell how people were feeling before they entered my home. And that was a survival mechanism. I had to have that, because if I didn't have that, I found abuse. I experienced abuse. So to me, that was my perceptibility that allowed me to have my experience and be so cognizant of everything that was going on around me. And the few people that I've met that have had very descriptive NDEs, they had the same background of abuse. And so as great or hard as that abuse was, I'm extremely grateful for it, because it led me to have my experience, which has impacted a lot of people. So
Yeah, that makes sense. Wow, that's awesome.
A great story.
Yeah. I love the message too. It's great. Yeah. So, Darren, do you have any other questions or?
No, I think I'm pretty well satisfied. I think it's great. It's a feel good one.
Thank you. So for some people, it makes them feel uncomfortable. Some people, it makes them feel good. But I say like I say in the beginning, it's not a story. It's not a story for everybody, but it's a story that can really make a difference for some.
Well, I think it's one of the most important things I think that we can talk about now too, is this. It's really game changing. This has really opened up over the last 10, 20 years, and just having people like yourself come forward with these stories and really gives us a different perspective. And it's not a dogmatic perspective. It's not dogmatic. It's not, what's the other word I'm looking for? It's not just, it's sort of ideology. It's like, it's very open and it makes sense. It's very common sense in a way.
Yeah. And it's weird. I've actually had different faiths try to bring me in the fold and kind of hijack the experience and say, okay, we're going to use it to recruit and bring people into the church. And I'm like, no, because that goes against my experience. Like, and legit, like they would not allow my interviews to come out public because of that, even though they'd spent thousands of dollars filming and doing these interviews with me. They completely redacted the whole thing because I was not going to be like this leveraged pawn for them.
Wow.
And I have to honor the experience. And the experience was that, God loves every single one of us so freaking much. We have no idea. Like if we could even get the smallest little glean of anything from this, just an understanding of how much our Creator loves us. If we could understand that a little bit better, I would be so grateful, because that's what my experience to me is to understand that me, a 25-year-old kind of DB that was just kind of living my egotistical life at the time, that here I was being saved by this experience and given in something that could really make a difference in my own life, let alone anyone else's. And I always hear Spirit say that we are the divine masterwork. We are. Not religions. We are. We the people. And it's important for us to never forget that we are the divine masterwork.
Awesome. That's a great place to end it. How can people find your stuff?
So they can I've got a website, livinggodslight.com. And then, of course, my book is on Amazon. So we've got on Amazon, Audible, Kindle, all three. And then there's some bookstores that carry it. You can always request it through the bookstore as well. But yeah, the book itself is called The Light After Death. Yeah.
Right on. Thanks, buddy. This has been great.
Yeah, this is a good one. Thanks,
been my
Vinnie.
pleasure. Yeah, thanks so much, Darren. Thanks so much, Graham. It's been so awesome to meet both of you and talk to you both. And thanks so much for having me on.
All right. Thanks. Take care.
All right, Vinnie.
Have a
Have a
blessed
great
night.
night.
Yeah.
Now's the chance, Vinnie. What'd you think, buddy?
Oh yeah, it was good. I man, a 3-day thing just hit me like a ton of bricks. I missed some of the stuff in his audiobook, I guess. There's a few details there that I missed. His story is even more profound hearing it from his lips.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's hard to think, it seems crazy.
Yeah.
You should you never had nothing like that?
No.
Makes you think a bunch of people might be buried alive.
I know. Imagine.
I'd rather not. Really rather not. Anyway, big thanks to Vinnie for coming on the show. Big thanks to you guys for listening. Even bigger thanks if you're one of those small percentile that choose to support our work here over at grimerica.ca/support. If you would, head over, sign up for monthly if you're getting some value from our little podcast over here. You also head over to grimericaoutlaw.ca, check out that podcast. There's a totally different podcast than this one. Totally different guests. 150 episodes over there. Some people still seem to be getting confused by that. Then we got trips. Some coming up in Utah. Contact at thecabin.com. Get all our audiobooks at adultpublishing.ca. Other than that, we love you guys. Thanks for listening.
Adult Brain.
What did I say?
Adult Publishing.
Oh, adultbrain.ca. Spam Graham, grammarcamerica.com. Other than that, we love you guys. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.
Somehow I built a rocket ship out of the stuff dreams are made and popsicle sticks. Please look at my rocket ship schematics. Tell me it can fly to the moon. Tell me I'm not a lunatic. I bet you think I'm a space cadet. I bet you think I'm a space cadet. No regret, I do not fret, 'cause I am a space cadet. In my hands I have a gas can and matchsticks. Yes, Earth is my home, but I need a vacation from all the sadness, the chaos, and dramatics. I'll let you do the countdown, 3, 2, 1, no hesitation. I bet you think I'm a space cadet. I bet you think I'm a space cadet. I bet Look at my rocket ship fly by, trailing behind a silver stream.